Well, the first international break of the 2024-25 season is over. The transfer window is shut in the EFL, and we can now focus on a good 3.5 months of football when it comes to the Championship. We are back today for our match week 5 predictions, where we'll run through all 12 games this weekend. We'll give you our preview, our predictions, and our reasons why. And as always, I'll encourage you to do exactly the same down in the comments. Give me your score predictions for every match this weekend. If you beat or match my overall score, you'll of course get a shout out in the next recap when we look ahead to match week 6. That episode will be out the same time next week. For now though, before we go and look ahead to match week 5, we need to go and have a look back at what happened before the international break, because there were a few surprises in match week 4, and none more so than on Friday night where my team gifted the opposition a win. So I only picked up 6 points in the end, but in more promising signs, my score has gone up by a point every week. So if I keep on that trajectory, I'll have a perfect score in about 30 weeks' time of 36 out of 36. For now, though, my only perfect score, as you can see, was for Leeds United's 2-0 win at home to Hull. Fair few of you got that as well. 3 other perfect outcomes at the end for Sheffield United, for West Brom, and for Sunderland at Pompey. Otherwise, a lot of frustrations and a few less goals than I predicted. 8 teams, a third of the sides failing to score in the match week 4. Let's hope that changes next weekend. Otherwise, it's going to be a pretty dull match day. Let's not worry about me though. Let's get on to all of you who beat or matched my score last time out. I got 6, and level with me were Simon and Scratch, both of you with 1 perfect score as well. Teo managed 7 despite not getting a perfect score, so good work on the outcomes. Joining you on 7 with 1 perfect score apiece are Jimmo, Akshat, Peter and Harvey. On 8, we've got Bobby, who got the perfect score for the Championship's favourite scoreline. Only 1 in Matchday 4 after all my talk about the close games. On 9, we've got 4 players, 2 of you with 1 perfect score. That was Steve and John. And with 2 perfect scores, Tony and Brian. And then into double figures, the top 5, we've got 2 of you on 10 points, 2 perfect scores apiece for Paul and Chris. In 3rd place, Mitchell with 11. Leeds and Stoke were your perfect scores. And then on 12 points, only separated by how many perfect scores you've got. With 2 perfect predictions, it's Gordon, a return to form for you for Burnley, Blackburn and for Middlesbrough's win. And Etienne, 12 points, top courtesy of an extra perfect score for you. Borough, Stoke and West Brom, all correctly predicted. So that means we have got a lot of work to do in match day 5, because there were no massive scores and I am still yet to hit double figures this season. Remember when I used to be good at this? Let's go and start with the Friday night football, a game we will be watching here live together on the YouTube channel. It's our 3rd live stream of the season, so come and join us just before 8 o'clock on Friday night. You can watch this game with us and we'll chat football throughout as well. It is Hull City versus Sheffield United, 2 sides that had very different weekends prior to the internationals. I've actually been really underwhelmed by Hull at the start of this season, because the one thing I thought we were going to get was real entertainment, because I watched Tim Walter in his previous jobs and his teams couldn't defend, but they loved to attack. Now we're basically seeing a watered down version of Liam Rossini's side, and I know it's early days. I know they've played some good teams and I'm sure there will be improvement as time goes along, but it's not been the best start to the season. They were thoroughly beaten by Leeds, didn't create a lot against Millwall the game before. Has been a little bit of a concern so far for Hull City. But against Sheffield United, who are going to play in a slightly different way, a little bit more direct, obviously aided by a Watford own goal, but a good win and a good performance against a side who had a perfect record prior to that point. It is important that they keep picking up points, and if it weren't for the deductions, they'd be up on 8 already. So I do feel this game's going to be a pretty tight one. I feel Hull are going to become more entertaining eventually. Maybe 2 weeks on the training ground for a lot of the players, not a bad thing. But Sheffield United, bar that QPR collapse at the end, have been relatively solid this season. So I'm going to go for them to nick it, the visitors, by 2 goals to 1. I think they've done really good work in the last month of the window. They have improved their squad. And as a result, I think they'll just have enough, as Hull City still chasing their first win. On to Saturday lunchtime, and it is a tale of the 2 favourites at Ellen Road. Pre-season title favourites Leeds face second favourites Burnley. Leeds United off back-to-back 2-0 wins, 3 clean sheets in a row. And you know what? They were really strong against Hull. They played brilliantly against Sheffield Wednesday in our last live stream watch-along. And even at West Brom, they were solid. On the opening day against Pompey, they had enough chances to win 3 or 4 matches. So I actually think it's been a decent start for Leeds, who managed to hold on to Nonto. They got Pirro back on the score sheet as well, which was really important for them. And they just look like they've signed well as well. Bogle's been solid at right back. Solomon is a really good player at that level. I think they're going to have a very good season, and I still make them my favourites. Against the side in Burnley, who have had a bit of a stuttering start, I think we all got a bit carried away with the first two games against the Luton youth defence, essentially, with two young fullbacks covering at centre half. Then against Cardiff, where they had very low expected goals, but were gifted some by Ethan Horvath. And Burnley are actually in the bottom 12 of the whole EFL for expected goals so far this season. They weren't great against Blackburn. You could maybe argue prior to the red card, a little fortunate not to be behind. But in the end, it was a frustrating tale because they played half an hour against 10 men and couldn't find a way through. It does make me question this a little bit more. They weren't great away at Sunderland, didn't create a lot. Then against Luton, it was just gifts from long balls forward. So providing Leeds can keep their solid defensive efforts, I think they'll win again in this one. I do worry a little bit for Burnley, but they've got quality players. They're only one performance away from really finding their stride. Probably the case with all of the relegated clubs. But I'm going to go for Leeds United to win and to keep winning by the same score. I'm going to go for 2-0 at Ellen Road. Well, we talked about the two promotion favourites in the last game. Let's move on to the third favourites and one of the sides who have yet to pick up more than a point this season. It is Millwall versus Luton Town. And my word, where do I start? In fact, let's cover Millwall first before I go on my little rant. Millwall were excellent against Sheffield Wednesday, dominated the game. They were relatively patient in attacking areas as well. We know they're never going to be the side that dominates the ball. We know they're never going to be the most free-flowing, fluent side in possession. But they created chances. They were the dominant force, and they got a really good victory. And they've had a goal threat at the start of this season, which I do think is an incredible positive. Good for them to get their victory after a couple of tough turnarounds earlier in the season. For Luton, though, it was a very different story. 1-0 and relatively comfortable at half-time, albeit both strikers out of form, not really looking like scoring from open play, an own goal assisted on this occasion. Then the second half, Frey caused chaos for QPR. New signing Mark McGuinness at centre-half, a bit of a tricky start for him both at Preston, and then in that game where he was arguably at fault for the equaliser. And then his confidence just dropped and in the end he got taken off. The first time, I've got to be honest, since Rob Edwards has been in charge, that there were audible boos at full time and there was a negative reaction towards him when he came to the fans, which is a concern. But then boosted in a week by a big signing, Victor Moses, winning multiple titles across Europe. Well, now he's a Luton Town player, and with Chio Ogbene leaving and that weakness on the right-hand side, I don't think Walters has settled too quickly in his first season of full adult football, really. So I do think that's a very shrewd signing and important for the short term. Victor Moses, I think, will come straight into the team. I do think he'll help Luton. But based on the start to the season for Millwall, the fact they play a bit more direct and Luton have looked so ropey in them central defensive areas, I'm going to go for a bit of a thriller here. I think Luton's strike force will hit form eventually. The window being shut probably helps, but Adebayo and Morris, one of them will hit goal scoring form soon. I'm going to go for a high scoring draw in this one. I'm going to go for 2 goals apiece, but in truth, I could see either team nicking it. And the final early kickoff on Saturday lunchtime is Oxford United versus Stoke City. Oxford have been magnificent in their home game so far this year, but in fairness, they've beaten two sides who have been pretty poor away from home for some time. They beat Preston 3-1 before the international break, aided by a red card with 20 to go, but some really good goals in that game. Mark Harris has taken to the Championship brilliantly, and Tyler Goodrum scored an absolute screamer. And after falling behind, to keep that mindset, to keep that patience and not just try and chase the game mercilessly, I think is a really good sign for them. I think we've seen already they're going to pick up most of their points at home. And they'll be targeting this game as well because Stoke City, despite a very good win away at Plymouth Argyle, nicking a late goal in a game where it was pretty even, it could have gone either way, but I'd argue Stoke created the best chances. And after a 5-0 win at Borough in the Cup, there are just signs again that Steven Schumacher is starting to get the ball rolling there. But as we've seen before, they'll then go and produce the type of performance they did at Watford, which they just seem to throw in every 3 or 4 games. An incredibly tough team to predict, and that makes this game tricky. I was going to throw my first Championship's favourite scoreline of the day, but we've not seen too many of them this season. I'm actually going to go for Oxford United to keep up their home form and to nick this one by 2-1. As we move on to the 3 p.m. kickoff, starting with Blackburn Rovers versus Bristol City. Now, I'm just going to address this straight off the bat because I've taken a bit of stick from some Bristol City fans earlier in the season, and my assessments are either slightly harsh, unfair, or maybe fair, but it's not going to happen this time. But I hate to say it, we've been doing this for so long. Bristol City are the most inconsistent side in a championship, and again at Derby. Where did that performance come from after the start of the season? Yes, they created a few good chances. On another day, might have scored 3 or 4 themselves. But defensively, that display, it's just come out of nowhere. The same at home to Millwall from a very comfortable position. But then against Coventry and Hull, they were relatively solid at the back. So it does leave you asking more questions than having answers. And it does worry me both against Millwall and Derby, the way they defended. It's not been consistent. They've either got a great attack and a poor defence, or a poor attack and a great defence. They can't seem to match up the right two in unison. So a very difficult start to predict as always from Bristol City. Blackburn I thought were really good at Burnley until the red card, a stupid red card as well. But there are signs of promise in their performances. They were good enough at home to Oxford United. They were good enough at home to Derby. There's still a definite threat against them defensively. They're not the best at the back. But some of those new attacking signings, I was worried with Schmodix going pre-season, but the additions of people like Vyman, I know Gay got the red card, Ahashi as well, they look threatening, and I think there's good signs for them. We know John Eustace, when he was in that similar position at Birmingham, relied on his home form, and given how Bristol City played there, I mean, there is a strong temptation to go for one apiece, but I'm going to go for Blackburn to nick it. I've just got a feeling they might win by 2-1. Well, I'm continuing to make the same mistake of predicting too many teams to score, aren't I? As we move on to Derby County versus Cardiff City. Cardiff have had a rotten start to the season. They're bottom. They've lost their best centre-half to the second bottom team, Luton. And they were pretty poor at home to Borough in a 2-0 defeat. Yes, they created a couple of chances, but nothing of real note. And their only half-decent performance, to be honest, was the second half against Swansea. Other than that, they've not really offered a great deal this season. It's been a slow start. It's been a poor start defensively. And Errol Balut is going to need to find something out of this team pretty soon. For Derby, a magnificent win against Bristol City. I do go back to my main concern about them, which is they concede chances for fun. Okay, against Borough and Bristol City, they weren't put away. On another day, they could have conceded 2 or 3 in each of those matches against a more ruthless attack. Against Blackburn, they played pretty well, but again, the defence was the Achilles heel. And again, they just don't seem to be able to dominate and control a game yet, which may be just being new to the Championship, but hopefully in time that will come for them, because otherwise it's going to be pretty tricky. This game, I think, presents an opportunity for both, a game that both will target. You've got to be fair to Cardiff. In addition to the derby, they've played Borough, Burnley and Sunderland, and a lot of people will have all 3 of them in their top 6 this year. So I'm going to say that this game will be a little bit tighter. I am finally going to relent and give my Championship's favourite scoreline. I'm going to go for 1 goal apiece because I just don't know what to predict from both of these sides. Derby will give up chances, but Cardiff haven't offered a lot going forward this year. And defensively, Cardiff have been a mess, so I can't predict a clean sheet. 1 apiece is my prediction. As we move into the second half, we go to a game that a lot of people would consider a home banker, but not the way Middlesbrough are in front of goal. They host Preston North End, now managed by Paul Heckingbottom, but a first defeat under Heckingbottom away at Oxford United. Liam Lindsay getting a red card with 20 minutes to go, but in truth, the damage had been done prior to that. It was a slightly better performance again for the first 60 minutes or so, but they gave up too many chances. And again, they just don't create huge bundles during games. And even against a newly promoted side, they weren't able to open them up too often. Yes, better signs against Harrogate and Luton going forward. Definitely more attacking intent, no doubt in that. But still not the finished article. It's going to take a little bit of time. And Preston, it's going to be a slow rise up the table rather than just storming up towards the top 6. For Borough, a much better performance away at Cardiff. But again, relying on a centre-half and an own goal, not really opening up clear-cut chances. And that's been the problem all season. A 1-0 win against Swansea on the opening day where they should have scored 4 or 5. A home to Portsmouth. Let's be honest, they had 30 shots and only managed to draw 2-2. Away at Derby, they battered them, conceded about the only chance they gave away. A really poor one defensively. And an odd cup performance as well against Stoke was a little bit of an outlier. But not consistent in front of goal is the big problem. Tommy Conway coming in hopefully will find that for them. Latilaf seems to be a bit hit and miss when it comes to one-on-one chances. If they do hit form, they could win this comfortably. But I'm going to go for Preston to fail to score and to lose by 1-0 because I just feel it's the safest prediction based on the 2 seasons so far. As we move down from the northeast to a side that will be travelling down to the southwest from there, it is Plymouth Argyle versus Sunderland. Sunderland are top of the table with the only perfect record in the Championship. A really convincing 3-1 win away at Pompey. The third goal was a thing of beauty. Alan Brown with a second. He's settling in well. Just a really good away performance from them. Yes, they gave away a ridiculous goal at the end, but you can be forgiven because they have been magnificent. The only goal they've conceded this year, which will be a frustration for them. They look great going forward. They look brilliant on the counter. The best compliment I can give them is they look on the counter-attack like Tony Mowbray Sunderland, and they've got that high pressing intensity that even under him they perhaps didn't have. So could be a very special season if they can keep things going in the right direction. However, there are a few areas of the squad that I feel are still a bit thin, so injuries could prove crucial for them. This game, though, it shouldn't be an issue because Plymouth have got virtually no goal threat, virtually no defensive acumen, and I do feel for Rooney a bit because they had one of the weakest sides on paper in a Championship, but the way they've set up, they're so open, and against better sides they could have lost by more. We saw what happened against Sheffield Wednesday on the opening day. Stoke didn't really take much advantage of them, but they gave up chances again. And I just feel this clash of styles is going to be a disaster for Plymouth. If they leave those spaces in behind the fullbacks or wingbacks again, as they did even when I saw them in pre-season and then against Sheffield Wednesday, I think it could be a very long day for them. I've gone for a 3-0 Sunderland win. I'm hoping Rooney will show a little bit of pragmatism maybe from a Plymouth point of view, just to set them up behind the ball and play against the team you're facing. Because if they stay as open and leave as many spaces out wide as they have in previous matches, Sunderland will exploit them and score a hatful. I'm going for 3-0 to the visitors. 4 to go, and we're off to Yorkshire for this one. It is Sheffield Wednesday versus Queen's Park Rangers. QPR got their first win of the league season with that comeback victory against Luton. Gotta say, I was really impressed in the flesh with Frey. I know he's had injury problems before, but he looked quick and strong, looked good on the ball, held it up well, and the centre-halves looked petrified of him. In the end, you've got to be honest, QPR aren't going to get as many gifts as they got from Luton this season from many clubs. But Sheffield Wednesday, based on recent weeks, might be one of those that provides them. After that brilliant start against a hapless Plymouth team and a big win in the Cup against Grimsby, heavy defeats against Sunderland and Leeds, which you can maybe forgive because they're top sides. But the Millwall one's a bit of a weird one. A side that don't always have a big attacking threat, to give up nearly 20 shots to them, to get done by that style of a team playing directly. And Sheffield Wednesday fell into the trap. They had 60% of the ball and created absolutely nothing with it. It was a really bizarre performance from them. So a few concerns about Wednesday, but they've had 2 weeks to work. They're playing against a side at home they would fancy their chances against. And I think this could actually be a really good game if both teams are on form. I could see a number of goals at either end, but I'm going to stick for the Championship's favourite scoreline in this one. Is a scoreline QPR have produced in League and Cup this year. And for Sheffield Wednesday, they've got to start finding a balance. And if they've been coached well over the last 2 weeks, I think they will. 1-1 is my prediction. Let's head over to South Wales as we move into the final three. It is Swansea City versus Norwich City. Norwich got a very credible 1-0 win at Coventry. It's a really good result. I mean, I'll never know how they pulled it off. Coventry had a couple of brilliant chances in the game. I know they didn't have a lot of the possession, but they dominated it from start to finish. But Norwich kept the ball well towards the end. They took the chance. They scored the one shot on target. And they got a win, which at this stage of the season can be all that matters to get you off to a good start. They're a side that have generally had a terrible away record in the last year and a half. I'm not sure that performance is going to do enough to change that view for me. And Swansea at home, I know it's been a difficult few weeks for them, but they were really good at home to Preston. Okay, a poor Preston side. They were good in the first half against Cardiff before losing a bit of discipline. And a 1-0 defeat away at West Brom. Let's be honest, that's not really a disaster, is it, at Championship level? They're a very good side at home. They didn't create an awful lot, which worried me, and they gave up a lot of chances, which West Brom don't often create. But Swansea, for all we say about their defensive record, haven't let in more than one a game this season. So I think this could be a pretty tight one. But I do feel Norwich are poor away from home. Despite that result, I don't think you're going to win too many playing like that. I'm going to go for Swansea to get back to winning ways. I'm going to go for a comfortable home win in the end. I think it'll be tight for the most part, but in the second half, Swansea will pull away. I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory in South Wales for the home team. And the final game on Saturday is the team that lost their 100% record before the international break. It is Watford versus Coventry City. Coventry again starting pretty slow. A frustrating day at home to Norwich. They've not quite found their form in front of goal yet, have they? They've got a number of good players, though it will come right in the end. And the performance was there, which is a more important thing. For Watford, a poor own goal conceded early against Sheffield United. After that, they were second best for the most part, created one good chance themselves, but Sheffield United dominated and deserved to win. That's going to be a concern for Watford because they've been brilliant so far this year. It's whether or not they can react to that. We've seen Watford go on poor runs with inconsistent form in the past, and they need to be able to bounce back and show the qualities they did against the likes of Derby when they managed to battle back from a goal down. Are we going to see one of those ruthless attacking displays that we saw against MK or Stoke? I'm not too sure. I think Coventry are a better side than that, but the Oxford game have been relatively solid at the back. So I'm going to go for my third Championship's favourite scoreline of the day. I can't separate them. Again, wouldn't shock me if either side won by 2-1. But I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline of 1 goal apiece. And the final game is on Sunday afternoon. It is a battle of the promoted side versus last season's playoff semi-finalists. Portsmouth versus West Bromwich Albion. Pompey's rotten start to the fixture list continues as they face another side from last year's top 6. They were very comfortably beaten by Sunderland. The first game that they just weren't in at all, to be honest. Sunderland were brilliant away from home, dominated and hit them with some great counter-attacks. But as we mentioned at the very start of this season, Portsmouth's year is not going to be judged on these first 7 games. They've done incredibly well to nick points against Leeds, Luton and Borough. But this game again is a very difficult one. West Brom, very hard to beat, up in second place. We got stick for putting them in the top 6 in pre-season, but we knew that Carlos Corberán would deliver a strong side. He always does. They were a better team against Swansea. They probably should have had more. They created a few good chances. And they're just solid at the back usually. It's the same old story. Only letting 2 in their opening 4 games. Away from home at QPR and Stoke showed a real threat on the counter. Josh Maja looked excellent in both of them. Will he find space in this one as well? I don't think it's going to be a thrilling game based on what we saw from Portsmouth at home to Luton. And to be fair, if Luton had had their shooting boots on early in that game, they probably could have scored 2 or 3 as well. Sunderland did score 2 or 3. I don't think West Brom are quite as potent in attack, but they're certainly solid at the back. And I'm going to go for them to nick this one. Maybe not the most exciting game. I'm going to go for 1-0 to West Brom on Sunday afternoon. With that out the way then, let's have a quick recap of what I've gone for in match week 5. After the international break, I've got Sunderland as my top scorers. I can't see anything other than a comfortable win for them at Plymouth. I've gone for Leeds United to win the battle of the 2 promotion favourites in one of the early kickoffs on Saturday. And I've still not gone for my side Luton Town to pick up their first win of the year. Sheffield United will continue their strong form with a 2-1 win on Friday night in a game we're going to be watching along here on the YouTube channel. Those are just my predictions for match week 5 though. Do you agree or disagree with them? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, give me your predictions for this weekend's action as well. If you beat or match my overall score, you'll get a shout out in the next recap. When we look ahead to match week 6, that video will be out next Wednesday. But as I mentioned, between now and then, we will be back on Friday evening here watching live as Hull face Sheffield United in the first game back. So if you're watching that at home too, come along, have a chat. We'll look ahead to the weekend's football. If you missed any of our other stuff during the international break, there's clips from games we went to, as well as a very special episode of You're the Ref, returning after about 3 years with Craig and Charlie. But thank you very much for being here. Subscribe, turn the notification bell on, and I'll see you back here same time next week for match week 6 of the Championship season.